Hello, this is Matt Johnson with the IIEP Resource Center, and I was just going to walk through a few of the common issues we're seeing right now with the assessment accommodations in Indiana IEP. This is going to address the situations where the assessment accommodations are not appearing on the IEP, or if they do appear on the IEP, they're not appearing in the TIDE report. So we're going to cover both of those aspects and the few variations there. A couple things that we've noticed as folks are using the new updated page here, as we see in front of us, that folks are doing a good job going through, clicking on add daily accommodations. Just keep in mind when you add daily accommodations here, so if I go into daily accommodations and add an option here and save and continue, that will appear at the top of the page. But anytime I add daily accommodations, I also have to, after I've chosen my participation level here, this is a high school student, I also have to review and confirm those below. But before I get to that, I want to make a point here. I think one thing we've noticed folks doing is they're selecting the daily accommodations and then writing in the testing accommodations in a text box. And just so everyone's aware, that doesn't make it on to the TIDE reports from there. So if you want the students, or you need, well, if we've chosen daily accommodations and we want to make sure they're confirmed for assessment, they need to be reported and recorded under here, under review assessment accommodations. So I want to make sure that's the case. So you can see in this student's case, I have enter daily accommodations. Now we're working on some help for this, but right now, if you save this page and move on, it will let you go through the process. The difference is when you get to the IEP, you're going to notice you have daily accommodations, but there's nothing listed under assessment accommodations, which is something a few people have overlooked. So as you're looking at this here, if we don't see anything on this particular page we're looking at, we should see the daily accommodations above. And then after we've checked the testing accommodations, we should see them listed here below. So let's do that here. So if I review assessment accommodations, you'll see those assessment accommodations that are aligned to the test the student's going to be participating in according to what you've chosen above. So these items here, the check marks that are already in place, should align to what's already been selected. If there's any situation, for example, up here under language arts, maybe it doesn't make sense to have a calculator. Oops, that's not the right one. A calculator for that student for English language arts, which is fine. Then we click on save and continue. And that really just confirms that those are the testing accommodations we want. And as you scroll down the page now, you should see, here's my list of accommodations that are selected for this student. Now, so it's really important that as we choose our daily accommodations, we're also reviewing the assessment accommodation. So to go back to my point earlier, if I make a change, maybe add another daily accommodation or make an adjustment here, say take off the testing use of a calculator for daily use for a calculator, and let's say I choose a different one. I'll just choose something up at the top here. Assistive technology to magnify and enlarge, for example, and then I save that. So now my daily accommodations are changed to reflect those selections. And then when I go here, go to review assessment accommodations, those are not automatically updated. We have to actually review assessment accommodations again. And even if we don't make a change here, which I'm going to anyway, just because to show you the options here, even if we don't make a change though, this will confirm the accommodations that were added. So even if we add an item for daily accommodations, if we don't go and review it, it doesn't get added to our assessment accommodation. So once we made our changes here, confirm them again, we'll save it. So the options that we've added at the daily accommodations should again match our review assessment accommodations here. So now the last part of this process is now the page looks right. And what a lot of folks are doing right now is once the page looks right, jumping right to creating a final IEP. And so the final IEP will capture the information that's displaying on the screen right here. However, that doesn't populate into the area where it can be picked up for the report and sent over to the TIDE or for the testing accommodation. So in order for the assessment accommodations to be properly, I guess, processed, make sure at the bottom of this page, the accommodations page, you click Save and Continue. So in doing that, now this information we've just entered is, once the IEP is final and accepted, will be able to be collected and reported to for the testing accommodation. So the final part of this process is, once these things have been changed, we have to go to create an IEP and complete the process of creating a new IEP. So you might just leave the same dates in place. This might be a revision. If you're adding accommodations that weren't there before, it is a significant change to the IEP that would have to be revised. If we're just confirming things, maybe all you had to do was make sure the accommodations were correct and hit Save and Continue, then create a new IEP. So that can be done here. But keep in mind that we still have to follow the same process that we have in place. So we still, even though we create a final IEP, in order for us to accept it, we have to have some communication with parents about signatures and consent there. So be aware of that going forward. That procedure is not vacated just because of, maybe we're just doing a simple correction here, but just keep those things in mind. So hopefully that walks you through some of the common concerns. Just keep in mind, make sure to review the assessment accommodations so that they appear correctly on that accommodations page, which I'll show you. Where are we going? So make sure everything looks right here, and then make sure we save and continue on this page. That really completes the process. And once all that looks right, then we need to go create the final IEP and accept it with consent, and then everything will be in line and should be ready for testing for the students. Now, keep in mind, we're continue to work with developers and the Department of Education to make this a smoother process. This is the fix for right now. I totally expect that this process will be smoothed out as we go forward. But for right now, this is the best way to make sure we have the right accommodations on the IEP, and those are reflected in the testing environment that's soon to come. Thanks for your time. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to guide you through the process as needed. Thanks for your time.